the profane, patriarchal virgin. Growing up, I heard many devastating and oppressive beliefs surrounding the archetype of the virgin and virginity. They're based in the patriarchy that prizes abstinence and the absence of sexual awakening and sexual experience to be held and cherished as the highest prize above all others. And what this high prize of virginity gave you was the value of purity. And that purity could then be bought and sold for a high price, hopefully by a wealthy husband, of whom, if you were lucky, you might love. Okay, the framework of the profane patriarchal virgin archetype, it primarily targets women, and the goal is to not have sex before you enter into a monogamous heterosexual relationship for the rest of your life. Tremendous value and self-worth in the patriarchal profane structure of this archetype were put on only not having sex, but putting society's norms and experience before your own desires. Okay, within each archetype is a counter archetype. So sort of like the yin and the yang, where one holds the seed of the other, can also dissolve into the other. So the virgin can literally become so virginal, she becomes a whore. Literally, her sex and her sexual autonomy is purchased by society, usually through the fear of shaming, loss of social status and reputation, perceived value, and her sexuality and its expression is then held hostage from being hers until society says at a certain date and a time that this other person is going to own your sexuality, and it's usually a man or sometimes a patriarchal god. There's been a slow bubbling up of a new matriarchal virgin archetype that's been resurfacing in the past decades. It was probably initiated in the second wave feminist movement, and it offered the definition from a more goddess-based inclusive perspective, which is that a virgin or a virgin goddess is one who is whole unto herself, totally complete, needs nobody else, essentially a woman who answers to nobody. Part of her purity in this framework, in this sacred matriarchal framework, is her individuality, as well as her commitment to her own autonomy. The virgin's sexuality is totally within her own dominion, not bartered or bought or owned by society or a husband. Okay, this doesn't mean that she doesn't have sex or that she's not sexual. She owns her sexuality openly, without shame. Virgin is a strong, self-defined archetype who cannot be taken or possessed by another human being. She happens to be totally self-sufficient sexually and otherwise, and generally knows clearly her sexuality and her desires. Okay, through knowing this, she exudes this magnetism, and that magnetism, it seems to be connected like straight to the divine. Okay, she's generally curious and wild and also new in any moment. So rather than being sexually ignorant, she knows clearly her desires and is always guided by them instead of society's desires for her.